I'm Hal and Steve Howell, your host for the BurntPossumRecords.com podcast. And we've had a wonderful lineup. I've had a wonderful last couple weeks. And anybody that has missed any of the shows, I tell you, you're really missing a lot of information out about some of these great blues men that are out there in the world. And today, I get joined by one who has been around a long time. And I'm telling you, if anybody could tell a story about the blues, this man could tell a story about anything. I don't know. He just sees something and he can tell a story about it. This man can spin out a yarn like you wouldn't believe. And not only that, he's one of the nicest guys, because I know I've come up to him a couple times and he really didn't know who I was. And I just came up there and I started talking to him. And man, he carried on a conversation with me like you wouldn't believe, like I was his best friend from way downtown. Man, I love people like this. I want to introduce to you, if you haven't been already introduced to, Doug MacLeod. And that word, and his last name is spelled MacLeod. That's right. And his friends that follow him are known as Dub Heads, because he's been named Dub by a fella that he knew a long time ago by the name of George Harmonica Smith. And oh my goodness, like I said, he has stories to tell. How are you today, Doug? And thank you for being on the show.
Well, Steve, I'm doing fine, and thank you for inviting me to be on your show. It's my pleasure.
Oh my goodness. I mean, your publicist and the person that takes care of you, I mean, she was nice enough to, just come on in and say, well, listen here, I'd love to. Yeah, it's a good thing that he's coming on your show. Well, I'm really happy to have you, and I'm really blessed. I have to say, I was telling Doug just a few minutes ago before the pre-show that, I saw him at Grants Pass, and I think it was the year about 1996 or 7. I'm not sure. I saw him there, and with a friend of mine by the name of Peter Galke. He's kind of a blues historian these days, and hope to have him on the show pretty soon. But it was in Grants Pass, and he's the one that says, man, you got to come out and see this guy. You have to really, he's a real storyteller from the real days of the blues. And then I saw him at Blue Heavens Studio, which was in Salina, Kansas. And like I said, I just walked up to him, just started talking to him. He started talking back to me. And I was like so blessed, man, that people could be so humble and yet so loving and so kind. And brother, I really appreciate your kindness in the past. So tell us, what have you been up to? I mean, really, let's get down into your story.
Well, what have I been up to? Been up to quite a bit. Actually, we have the new album out, A Soul Acclaim, and produced by Jim Gaines. And I do remember when my manager, Mickey, said, I want you to do an album with Jim Gaines. And for your listeners that may not know that name, Jim is a guy that produced Stevie Ray Vaughan, Santana, Huey Lewis and the News. I forget all. He's a legendary guy. And I said, that Jim Gaines, are you sure? And she said, yeah, the two of you will get along. So I had a night off in Cleveland, and I gave Jim a call. And we started talking and telling stories, and about an hour and 20 minutes later, he said, Doug, I think maybe I ought to give you the directions to where the studio is, east of Memphis. I said, that might be a good idea, Jim. And so he gave me the directions. And when I got back home here in Memphis, I drove out and to where his studio is, and we sat down and told some more stories. And then he said, play some songs for me. And I played some songs, and he said, yeah, let's go ahead and do a record. And that's how it happened.
Oh my goodness. That sounds fantastic. I listened to the whole album a couple times over. I've always enjoyed your music. I mean, I gotta admit, I haven't studied it as much as other music that I have, but I'm telling you, I bought an album. I think it was in 1996. I forget the name of that album, actually. I thought it was so great that and then when I met you in 2002, I went ahead and bought that. I bought an album, a recent album off you. What's truth? What is lies? Who's truth?
Oh,
Who's
who's
lies?
truth, who's lies? Yes.
Oh man, what a great song, dude. Does that fit today or what? Man, that anybody out there, you need to go listen to that song. I mean, because I'm not going to play it today because I got a couple others I'm going to play for you off his new album. But anyway, yeah. So as a songwriter, let's talk about songwriting just for a little bit.
All right.
Have you always been able to be one of those guys that just like stories just drop out of the sky, or you see something and it's just so creative that in the creative instinct that you have inside you, you just all of a sudden you can just put that down on paper and all of a sudden just be able to play it. I mean, tell me how your songwriting process goes.
Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. It doesn't quite go like that. I don't mean any insult by that at all.
No, I know
But
you don't.
it's not for me, it's not a really artistic in that kind of sense. What happens to me is that, let's say I'll do an album and I know I've got to do an album. I always think that the field is fallow and there'll be no more crops coming. And my wife Patty Joy says, "Oh yeah, that field will give food. It will, and it does. And usually, how it happens is I will be tired, maybe on the road somewhere, and getting ready to sleep, and feeling real good with clean sheets and nice clean pajamas, just getting off the road.
Oh,
Everything's really nice. And I said, I'm going to sleep. And maybe I sleep about an hour and a half, and this idea comes through my mind. And I go, oh man, that's so good. I'll never forget that. Well, I did that one time. And this is what I think songs do, Steve. I think songs come and visit you and wake you up. And they say, here's a song now. Now, you got a choice whether or not you're going to take the song. And if you don't take the song says, okay, you go back to sleep. I'm going over to Chris Smither. I think Chris Smither would like to hear this song.
Oh, man.
And,
Nice.
Chris gets the song. And Chris doesn't need any more songs. So, so when it comes to me, I get it. And sometimes they come right away. It's like when your wife has a baby and it's the standard edition and it comes and everything's there, just a little tweaks. And other times it's slow. Sometimes it comes out little by little. There's one on this record that I forgot about it. It's called Grease the Wheel. And
Oh, yeah.
I just brought it down to Jim. And I didn't think too much about it, and Jim said, oh man, I like that one. Let's go ahead and put that on. So it's, there's really no pattern with me. It's just whatever it is, it is.
And then you just let your fingers on the guitar do the rest of the talking.
Yeah, I had a guy just the other day asking me about how I played, because of my right hand.
All right.
And I actually told him, I said, I have no idea what that right hand's doing. I had a guy, I did a instructional DVD years ago, and they asked me to put the tablature on it. And I said, I don't know how to do that. I said, I really don't. And they said, well, we'll get somebody to do that. And I said, well, I think that'd be a good idea. So months later,
Wow.
the guy sends the tablature and the music to my wife, Patty Joy. Now, Patty, she's a legit musician, Steve. She can read music and she can do that, right?
Right on.
So she gets this music and she puts it in front of me. She was doing a third service for our church back in Los Angeles. And she said, Doug, can you read this? Can you play this? I looked at it, I said, oh, no, sweetheart, I can't play that. There's no way I can play that. She said, that's what you played on the DVD.
Oh, my goodness.
So, with me, it's like whatever it is, and I don't much worry about it anymore,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why I asked a question like that is because there's this one fella by the name of R.L. Burnside. And they were trying to get that out of him the same way, you know. And he just said, "Man, I just play this stuff. I mean, I just let my fingers go, you know. I mean, I just play it, you know." And I mean, and he sets up the groove, and you know, it's also in Guitar Player magazine. One of the most famous categories that I've ever heard in my life was Gatemouth Brown. You know, they was trying to get, okay, what kind of guitar do you play, and what kind of amplifier do you use, and what kind of pedals you use? And he looked at him and says, "What? I let my fingers play. I just turn on the guitar and I just let my fingers do the talking. I don't need no special setup. I didn't need no special anything." You know, and that's what he told Guitar Player magazine.
Well, you know something, I got to agree with that. There's two things that you remind me of. They once asked the famous jazz guitar player, Jim Hall, how did he play so well? And his comment was, "I just try and get out of the way." And then years ago when I was younger, I met George Benson before George Benson became really a real big pop star. He's playing jazz clubs. And I went down to see him because I always liked him. I always thought he's kind of bluesy, but a little bit advanced, you know. And
Yeah.
I've always been a Kenny Burrell, George Benson kind of fan. And I was lucky enough to meet him. And instead of playing that big body Gibson, he was playing a Guild solid body. And yeah, and he came over to the bar and just happened to be where I was sitting, where he ordered his drink from. And we started talking. And I asked him, I said, "You know, I noticed you getting the same tone out of that solid body guitar that you get out of the big jazz guitar." And he said, "Oh man, yeah, that's because the sound I hear is the sound I'm going to get." So,
Darn. Wow.
yeah, I think a musician has that. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. The guy told me a story about old Cornell Dupree. Do you remember that name, Cornell Dupree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic guitar player. Played Telecasters. So this guy gave him a old Epiphone. If memory serves, but he gave him an old jazz guitar.
Right.
So you figure he's going to get that tone like Kenny Burrell, right?
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, you know what tone he gets? He gets the Telecaster tone out of that big jazz guitar.
Oh, my goodness.
So
Hey,
that's
you know.
how that works, Steve. You understand?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how that
I totally get it. I mean, I'm that way. I mean, I've been building guitars since I could probably walk, you know. And so, you know, I mean, and when someone says, well, there are certain tone woods you can put together that make up a certain sound for a certain person. Now, the next person that could pick up that same guitar that you built the tone for ain't going to get the same tone.
Absolutely.
It's just like our voice. You know, I think there's several musicians in the world that have said, find your own voice. You know, whenever you learn to play, just play like you talk. Play like your voice, like it belongs to you. You know, that makes sense because, you know, when you get in that headspace of the music itself, you know, that music just dropped down on you only because you had prepared your body just to do what, you know, whatever what do you want to call it? Ethers, angels, gods, whether you want to call it, whatever you call it. That drops, that is like, for me, it's like whenever I go to play, it's like I just close my eyes, I see it in the sky, and it's easy to tell the story then. You know, it's easy to play that story, you know, so to speak. And that's where I get mine. And a lot of people do different things, you know, different things in different ways to write songs. Sometimes the guy he can pick up, like me, I can pick up a bottleneck and play a note. And all of a sudden, that note is all of a sudden like sending me somewhere else to tell a different story than what I sat down to play. And, you know, I mean, and that, I think that's the way I mean, as I watched you play, you were playing a deal. I think you were at the Crossroads. I remember you were playing a Deolian. It was kind of a matte finished national guitar, and you played basically. You played that for about. I think you had it on 3 different sets because I saw you on Friday night. You played 1 set, and then I think you played 2 sets on set. I'm not sure. My memories, I'm getting old too. uh, now, don't tell nobody else that, please.
I think you just did.
Oh, no, yeah. The trouble is I have the power to pen. It's called edit.
Okay.
No, I won't take that out. Anyway, let's play one of your songs off your new album.
All right.
And there's a couple of them that I just one, you made me laugh my tail off, and that's that Dub's Talk of Disappointment. Oh my God, what a story. Anyway, and I'm hoping that it's not true, but
No, it's not true. That's a little bit of an exaggeration.
But anyway, we're going to play the first one, Soul to Claim. This is a great song, man. And I think it represents you throughout every time I've heard you play. I think it really represents you well. There's a couple things, there's a couple other songs that I could have chose, but this one really stands out to me. A Soul to Claim. And we'll let you tell the story after the song. And or just fill us in on what happened.
Right. On a rainy highway, I picked up a rider one night. I said, where you going? He said, anywhere you go be all right. And after those spoken words, he didn't speak no more. I begin to wonder, had I met that man before? Sometime darkness give birth to light. Sometimes courage, born from fright. Sometimes demons, they get tamed. Sometimes the devil, you lose a soul to claim. We drove through the night, nothing being said. The only conversation was the one inside my head. I said, we've been riding all these miles, man. You ain't never once asked my name. He said, I don't care what they call you. I'm just looking for a soul to claim. Sometime darkness give birth to light. Sometime courage, born from fright. Sometime a demon, he get tamed. Sometimes the devil, he lose a soul to claim. This wasn't the first time he rode with me. You know, I always picked him up. I could never let him be. But that night, I left him all alone in the rain. And the devil lost a soul to claim. Sometime darkness give birth to light. Sometime courage, born from fright. Sometime demons, they get tamed. Sometime the devil, he lose a soul to claim. Sometime darkness give birth chain. Sometimes the devil loses a soul to claim. Lose a soul to claim.
My. A man. It says if you want to know a man who wants to know God, he'll come to the blues in order to find church. Tell me about that. Now, is that a true story?
Well, it's a, what was the word? Allegory? It's about
Oh, an allegory. That's
beings.
perfect.
Human beings have a way, a lot of us have a way of perpetuating a negative cycle. We know we shouldn't be doing it. But we're driving on, so if you picture it in your mind, you're driving on this rainy highway. It's cold, and you're in a warm car, and you see this poor soul out there on the road. You barely see him, but your headlights flamming, he got his thumb out. You say, man, I gotta help this guy. You know, let me give him a ride. He gets in the car, and all of a sudden you realize he doesn't want to know your name. He doesn't want to know nothing about you. All he wants is your soul. So in a matter of speaking, you have picked up the devil. So the devil, he just wants you, he just wants your soul. So you fight with this, and you fight with this negative habit that people have. The positive part of this song is that the driver pulls over and lets him out in the rain. And then as the song goes on, without any words, it's supposed to give you like a visualization of leaving something bad behind.
Oh, yeah, right.
And moving on down the road now. Even though it's raining,
Right.
even though it's dark, what's coming is the dawn and sunshine, because you had enough sense to leave that negativity behind.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Yeah. Great songwriting. You know, it kind of reminded me of, you know, back in my day. Now, I'm going to go lighthearted on you here a little bit. But I used to drive around in this 1963 Volkswagen van. Had a peace sign on the front of it with a dove in the middle of the peace sign. And the only question I would ask anybody that wanted to ride, because I picked up all the hitchhikers. I didn't leave anybody out in the cold or without food or anything like that. I mean, I just pick them up, you know, because I've been a hitchhiker in my life. And anyway, I remember that van going down the highway, and the only question I would ask them is, "Can you roll?" You know, because a lot of times, you know, you could turn up the 8-track just as loud as you want to go. And back then, I was listening to a lot of Stephen Stills and Joni Mitchell and folks like that, you know, and I love that stuff, you know, and I mean, and I love to get in that headspace, because when you're going up like the east side of the Rockies, man, in a Volkswagen van with a 1200 cc motor in it, man, you like doing the Flintstones. You might as well almost be pushing that thing on up the hill, because you're gonna take hours to go one little stretch, you know, and it's not the fastest way to get around. So what do you do in the meantime? You have them roll for you, so you can just, you know, keep on listening to music and talking. And like you said, most of the time, I didn't get their name, even though they would, they probably told their name, and I knew that they were just going to go one way, and then they were going to, be on their way, But there is some people that you would pick up that brought in this negative energy, and it's an energy you didn't want, and anything. Well, that's my story, and that's my part of the story. So, yeah, I mean, any of this see, this show is supposed to be basically informative, and like, I like to talk to the young songwriters, and I like to, talk to the performers and musicians like yourself that are great at telling stories. See, now you just gave them an insight to the story, which makes that so powerful to the person that wants to learn to really songwrite. Let it go and let it songwrite. So that's why I talk about that, Doug. Okay. And, and I think it's a good thing to bring people on, because let's face it, if we don't pass on the blues ain't going to go nowhere else, and it's sad. We've lost so many great blues players over the last 10 years even, I mean, it's really a sad thing. And so anyway, the accolades that you carry, you're a pretty heavy dude when you look at all the places you've been. Now you live in Memphis, and you were born, it says he was born in New York in 1946 is what I see. And as a teenager, you must have had a stutter, because then that's when you learned to, help playing blues music and playing music on an acoustic guitar seemed to really help that. That's an amazing story in itself,
Well, thank you. It kind of is. I had a stutter, and I was abused when I was a boy. So people have told me that's probably why the stutter came to. And I can tell you the story. It's kind of a funny story. I was playing with a band in St. Louis. I was playing bass, and we had backed up Chuck Berry at a place called Mosley Electronics. It was a teen hop, and of course we knew Chuck Berry's songs because we're all from there, right? We all
right.
So playing behind Chuck Berry was nothing. We just found out. We had one guy that had like perfect pitch. He'd find out what the key was, and he'd holler the key, and then we'd all play it. So we get done with this set, Steve, and I'm standing in the back. And back in those days, we all had suits and everything. We were clean, And this pretty girl comes up to me and says, "Are you in the band?" I said, "Yeah, I'm in the band." She said, "What do you do in the band?" I said, "I'm the bass player." She said, "Oh." And then she walked down to the guitar player, who at that time was the fourth ugliest guy on the planet. And he had 5 or 6 pretty gals all around him. So I turned over to Gene Gray, the saxophone player. I said, "Gene, that's it. I'm giving up bass." He said, "Why?" "You a good bass player." I said, "Look, man, if that guy can get 5 pretty gals, I can at least get 1. I'm gonna pick up guitar." And so I picked up guitar. And because I've been playing in all these blues bands in the St. Louis area,
Right.
I knew the songs, and I tried to sing. And when I tried to sing, this voice came out. And I said to myself, I got a choice between the voice that stutter or the voice that don't. I'm taking the one that don't stutter. And that's what happened.
Man, that's a real, I'm really thankful that you can tell a story like that. Just think how many people out there might be listening, think, wow, they can find a way out. They can find a way to overcome. They can find a way to do. That's a fantastic story, especially about the girls. I really like the story, because you're right. Bass players and drummers. Drummers are they're pretty lucky at times. They seem to score a lot. But the bass player is the guy who's probably usually running the band anyway for the background. I'm telling the truth. The bass player. Yeah,
bass player and drummer. They're the if you think about like football, bass player and the drummer. They're the linemen. Those are the guys that are blocking, and those are the guys that make it possible for the quarterback to throw to the ends or make the halfback be able to run. They're the most important guys in the band. They are the most important.
Then
guys,
I think they ought to be able to get the girls too. Then,
well, they do now. But back in our day, they sure didn't get it.
Well, things have changed. Times have changed, and man, the tonality of basses, and the bass amps and the bass, the way they're built by these guys that are scholars at tone. I mean, it's like, yeah, no wonder. Yeah, they can make a basset dog pick up a Doberman Pinscher. I mean, it's it's freaking crazy. I'm gonna play this song. I can't help it. I gotta play this, Doug, because it's so full of humor. Like I said, first time I heard it, I about died laughing. I just thought, man, this is one of the funniest songs I've heard in a long time. I mean, since my ding-a-ling, I mean, it's like, it's that good, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Here we go. And then we can hear the premise for the story afterwards. That'd be great.
Well, I was feeling lonesome one night, unlucky, and didn't know what to do. So I thought I'd head on down to Nunzio's Naugahyde room. That's where the elite meet, Well, I saw this pretty little lady at the very end of the bar. So I bought me a drink and commenced admiring from afar. After a while, I thought, well, I'll go over and introduce myself. I've been disappointed so many times, I figured, what the hell? I asked her what sign she was and could I buy her a taste. She said, my sign is slippery when wet. Let's go to my place. I was like, oh, Lord. Man, could this really be true? Am I gonna score on my very first move? Or like so many times before, end up with a disappointment blues? Now she had a fine apartment in the very heart of the city. On the very top floor, where the view was so pretty. She lit some battery candles and clicked on a gas fireplace. She said, baby, get yourself comfortable. I'm gonna fix us a taste. Then she soberized herself on by with 2 bourbon meats. And we shared our first kiss, and we didn't hit no teeth. And then she said, baby, let's not waste no more time, because I know we are sharing the very same frame of mind. Then she took my hand and led me to the bedroom, and she says, I'm gonna get myself comfortable and I'm gonna be with you soon. I said, yeah. Ooh, Lord, could this really be true? Am I gonna score on my very first move? Or like so many times before, just end up with a disappointment blue. Now she took off a wig and she put that in the drawer. Then she took out upper teeth and she put them in the drawer. Took off her eyelashes, put them in the drawer.
Then she leaned over, popped out her left eye, and put that in the drawer. I ain't lying. Then she took off her boom booms and she put them in the drawer. Took off her stockings, put them in the drawer. Then she sat down, unscrewed her right foot, and put that in the drawer. I ain't lying. And I said, I hope to God she ain't taking off no more. Then she took off her girdle, put that in the drawer, and everything that was holding up damn near hit the floor. She said, baby, I'm ready. I'm gonna take you places you ain't never, ever, ever been before. And she was right, because when she hopped into bed, I hopped in the drawer. What's this poor fool to do? Here I am in some strange woman's drawer with the disappointment blues. Disappointment blues. In some strange woman's drawer. I wonder how in the hell I'm gonna get out of here. Maybe she'll fall asleep or something. Sleep yet. I guess gonna have to wait. Yeah, just play a little bit more.
Oh, Doug, man, that cracks me up, man. That's got to be one of the funniest songs I've heard in a long time, brother. I'm glad you came out with that one. It kind of reminds me of, Honey Boy Edwards, when I saw him. And I think you might have been on that building. Was that with Honey Boy? Have you been on the same building with Honey Boy Edwards?
Oh, many times.
I thought so. And I think that was at Blue Heavens when I saw you that time. Anyway, he came and sang that song, She Got a Face Like a Monkey. I always thought that line was the funniest line in the world. She got a face like a monkey. She walk like one, too. That kind of thing. That cracks me up. But okay, now, man, you got to give us the insight on that song, because it wasn't like, man, okay, it's time for me to have some humor. It's time for me to lighten up all these blues people because, because it's like we could get into the heaviness of the blues, or you could take that it's just a song like Hesitation Blues, Reverend Gary Davis song. I've been covering that for a lot of years myself, and that song is one of my favorite songs because it is kind of funny, the hesitation stockings and them hesitation shoes. Lord, I got them hesitation blues, And it's all about that man's want and desire and he's wanting a woman. That's all plain and clear. And what you got was like, was she a veteran or, was she off in Vietnam or something like that and got stepped on a landmine or what?
Oh, no, man. No. I think you're missing the point of it.
Okay.
No.
Oh, good.
No. This exaggeration. It's an exaggeration. Of course, when I was younger and I would try and pick up girls, I would be disappointed, especially some of the girls when they had wigs on or had all these eyelashes on. I thought that's how they always looked. I didn't know.
Oh.
I was just a young guy. I didn't know nothing like that. And, I was just a young boy. I was like 18, 19 years old fooling around with these ladies. I didn't know this. So anyway, I tried to write this song so it would be so far that there could be nobody humanly possible that's like a bionic woman. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody gonna be like that.
Right.
But what you said about humor is really important because I hope we don't lose that in blues. And I see what we are. There's a whole lot of people but the thing of it is, I was fortunate enough to come up and play with a lot of the old bluesmen.
Right.
And now they are, they're considered some of the greats the music has ever produced. And this is what I've always felt, Steve. This music, blues, this is a music of overcoming adversity, not subjecting to it.
Oh, perfect. Oh,
This
man,
is
you're
how I
right.
feel about
Right.
it. I thought about this. You think about who created this music. Think about that for a minute. Slaves created this music.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the old blues men I knew before I met the sophisticated ones, most of them couldn't read or write. They were illiterate. You understand? Or the ones that were not totally illiterate, they could barely read or write.
Right.
So I started to ponder on this. I said, how did this music that's all over the world, that came from a little spot in Texas, a little spot in Mississippi, a little spot in Carolina, and all of a sudden it's all over the world? And I thought about this. And what I believe is this: when I traveled with the old blues men, the way they beat adversity, one of the ways they did, was by humor. They laughed all the time.
Right.
They laughed all the time. I didn't know if I was supposed to laugh. Some of the things they said were so funny, but so politically incorrect. Even before we knew politically incorrect, I didn't know, being the only kind of white guy that's in the room, that I should laugh, but I laughed inside. And after a while, some of those guys said to me, "It's all right, little Dub, you can laugh at this stuff too." And I did. And I laughed and I enjoyed it. So I think blues should have humor in it. Because when I met Willie Dixon, he and I talked. And he said, he actually liked a songwriting of mine. He actually liked a song of mine called "Greasing My Gravy."
Oh,
And then I told him how
great
much
song.
I loved his writing. And I said, "You talk about things that make you laugh." And he said, "Well, it's part of life, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "And blues is part of life, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's how you got to look at it." I said, "Well, if Willie Dixon's telling you that, I think you ought to stop and think for a little bit and realize that's something to stop and think about, you know?"
Oh, it is. It is. I kind of grew up on the streets of Pomona, California, which is a suburb of LA. It's on the I-10 freeway, and that was literally 50 feet in my backyard. The I-10 was, and the folks in the neighborhood, they weren't the richest, but they had a way of making humor happen out of something that wasn't so humorous, something that was not. It was pretty serious, but we just learned to laugh. We just learned to have joy inside of something that could have been something of demise. It could have been something to run down the character of another human being. But really, when you came to it, a lot of it came to why we laughed is because where we lived was not so pretty all the time. Was not so wonderful.
Humor can do that for you. I have a saying. I said, if you can laugh at your problems diminish.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
If you can laugh at your successes, your head size diminishes. This is good diminishing, what I'm talking about.
Oh, man.
Just keep you on the track, because that's what it's about. And that's what I saw. Also, Steve, I'll tell you something else. People will call me an artist because I'm a songwriter, singer, player, all this kind of thing. So what demands an artist? I have always been uncomfortable with that. And the reason why is all the old blues men I work with, I never heard one of them call themselves an artist. They call themselves an entertainer. And what their job was to entertain people, make people feel better, even for just a moment. So you think now, just sit in your mind, and the folks that are hearing us talk, think in your mind, Lightning Hopkins. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Think about the old Giros from Africa that went from the town to town to give the news and tell the stories. Think about Lightning coming into somebody's small little joint, making up songs, finding about the people, making up songs about them to make them feel better for maybe 1 hour out of their life. Do you think about that? That's some powerful stuff. I hope we don't lose that with blues.
That was
I hope,
something.
I
That
hope the young
was.
musicians find out about this and say, yeah, that's what these guys were doing. That's what this was about.
I'll be honest with you. I don't mind being. I don't mind being schooled by a man like yourself who have been down the road and has experienced a lot more than myself. And when I look at that, my whole goal as an entertainer was to think about the working man because I've worked in the factories. I know what it's like to bend metal. I know what it's like to stick it in a machine and listen to it grind away all day long. I know what that's about. So when you talk about that 40 to 50 hour work week, when you talk about it, these people, when they come out to hear an entertainer play an instrument, they're trying to get out of that frame of mind. They want to lose that for just a moment. It doesn't matter if it's a couple hours worth. It's still, and really, brother, that's one reason why I've always migrated towards the blues because I always felt that, that I always felt uplifted afterwards, and like I said, Muddy Waters said, he's talking about a man that's down. If you want to know what the blues is all about, it's just a man that's been separated from God for a while and he wants to join up with him. You know what I mean? And so, when we talk, like I said, I did miss the point on the humor, and I'm glad you pointed that out because
I'm glad.
I was looking
I'm
at
happy. Yeah.
I was looking at it a different way, and then you brought a whole new light on it. So I grew. You just made me grow. And so those who are listening to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Doug MacLeod, you get a chance to go out and hear this man play. You're going to hear somebody that really does know how to take you out of that work week. You can walk up to this man and shake his hand. He's he's just like anybody else down the road you go, it's just, but yet, I stand in awe of his career and his ability. And, I don't know if looking at him as an artist is really true or not. I have no idea because I look at it as someone that I've gone out and really left my work week with for a while, and many others right alongside him. In fact, I think I'm more of a fan of a blues than when I was ever playing it. So, I love playing the blues, but it's like I could go out and listen to somebody play the blues and get just as much out of it. So it's like, it's all the same to me, it's the only difference is he getting paid and I'm not, and I kind of like the greenbacks. The greenbacks talk to me.
Well, you got to know one thing, Steve. You know something? Honestly, we all play for free. They just pay.
Really?
They just pay guys like me for the schlepping. You understand? That's what it's about.
Yeah, I get paid for moving my equipment from one spot to the next, basically. You're right. The schlepping, that's great, man.
That's what we do, man. We schlep it all the time. I was on this tour. I just got back from England, and I finally had a driver. I've been going over to England maybe, I don't know, man, 11, 12 times and had to drive on the wrong side of the road. finally had this driver. And, man, he was in the music business. He's a pretty famous guy over there. And we were just enjoying telling stories and laughing about this business and how crazy it is.
Oh, man.
And, I look back on it now and I go, yeah. If you would have told me when I was in Norfolk, Virginia, walking along the Mulberry Arch, thinking I was a blues man before I met Ernest Banks, that I would be here at this point in my life with all the negativities and all the struggles and everything else. Would I have taken it? I would have taken it in the New York Minute.
Oh,
said,
baby.
yes, sir.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You think about it. You talking about entertainment. Now, Pomona, California. I lived in California for quite a while. And being a big baseball fan, I'm a St. Louis Cardinal fan, but I am, and couldn't help it, become a Dodger fan because of a guy by the name of Vin Scully.
Oh, baby.
Now,
Vinny.
did you ever notice, no matter how he didn't have a perfect life. I understand he had some children die and so on, and he struggled through every, he didn't have an easy time.
Yeah.
But every time you turned on the radio to hear the Dodgers, Vin Scully sounded the same no matter what was going on in his life.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Now that's something.
That's
something that you got to admire that, because he knew he was not the most important thing. Which brings me to the thing that I say before every concert. My manager, Mickey Mulvihill, gave this to me, and it was what Luther Allison used to say. This is pretty heavy, so I'm going to take my time. This is what Luther used to say before he played every gig, and I say it before every gig too. Leave your ego, play the music, and love the people. Now, as soon as you put that in your mind, you're not important. You're not the important thing. The important thing is the music and the people. So you are, just like where we started this conversation, when Jim Hall said, I just try and get out of the way, right? That's what you're doing. You're getting out of the way, and whatever that power is, whatever that is going through you and bringing it so that the people get something that takes their mind away from their daily work or whatever they got on their mind.
Oh, man.
That's what you do.
That is one of the heaviest things that you could say to an up and coming somewhere, someplace, even to old guys like myself. That's really something a guy needs to take that apple and take a bite out of it and find out how sweet it can be if you just leave it be and let it be the apple that
I like
it
that.
is.
See, now that could be song. How sweet it can be if you just leave it be. So if that comes out, if I write that song,
Yeah.
I'll give you what we used to do in high tone. Change a word, get a third.
This my wife and I, that's basically how I've ever written songs. And my songs never, the only one I've ever dealt with is like Bruce Siglauer at Alligator Records. The only people that I've ever really talked to about any of my music and stuff. And he's wanted to buy a couple of my songs, and that's cool, and where it all comes from is we drive these dirt roads, get us out a 6-pack. We be drinking and just hanging around out here, and we call that boonie crashing. We go out boonie crash is what we call it out here, and we see something, and all of a sudden a lyric could come out. She'll write it down. She'll write something down, and then she'll say, "What do you think about this?" Oh man! And then something to come later on will come to me, and I'll have a whole list of these lyrics all of a sudden, and I'll just piece them together eventually, and it turn into a song, and that's how. Yeah. That happens. That's how that happens. It's funny that you brought up Vin Scully, because his story is not. Everybody thinks of him as this glory king, but if you look up to him, man, if you grew up under the shadows of the City of Angels like I did, and where we went to have fun was, man, if you got the top deck of the Coliseum. When they played at the Los Angeles Coliseum, you would still turn on the radio and listen to Vin Scully tell you the story while you were watching it.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we did, because that voice, to me, is it took us away, like we've been talking about. Yep. He would automatically soothe that beast inside of you that was just tired of the city. Sometimes the smog would be so bad. Sometimes it'd just be so hot you couldn't even stand yourself. And at least the ocean was not too far away. Doug, you are a man. You are the man who I always thought you were. Thank you. In this conversation, I'm so glad that we've got to have it. I can't thank you enough for saying yes to coming on my podcast.
Thank you for asking me, Steve. Appreciate it.
And it makes me proud, because I know there's so many other things that we could talk about, but what we talked about was what it was supposed to be for the moment right now, you know. And so we'll hang with that, you know. It's just like the guys I used to ask when I was rolling down in that ugly green Volkswagen with the peace sign on the front of it, man. Can you roll? You know, and it's kind of like musicians, you know, meeting other musicians. Can you roll? Can you do this? You want to do this? Come on, man. Come on, let's go for the ride. You know, it's cool. We don't have to say nothing. Just go for the ride.
We're going for the ride.
So, brother, like I said, I really appreciate you, and I'm going to have to close out now. And
Okay.
I'm going to close it with this. I got a few kind words I want to say. And if you will please stay on the line for even after I'm closed, I'm going to stop the recording, and I want to talk to you a little bit and say a true goodbye to you.
Okay.
So here we go. Hi, I'm Hal and Steve Hal. Boy, what a great podcast we've had today. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to tell all my friends to get out and listen to this. But I really want something, I really have something to say. A friend of mine there in Portland, Oregon, and I were talking just before I had Doug MacLeod on the show. And we talked about judgment and what it does to the human psyche, what it does to the man. Judgment is a horrible thing. I think that's why it was a commandment, not just a good word that we were supposed to do, you know, or just a word in passing. No, it's a commandment. It means don't set yourself higher than somebody else. And with that, in the last couple shows that I've had with you, I always end with these words. Listen, it doesn't cost you anything to be kind. It doesn't cost you anything to reach out and love. It doesn't cost one thing to let a 42-foot truck that's got a signal on and needs to get in the right lane because he needs to exit, who's got a truck full of your food. There's nothing wrong with backing off and signaling that guy to let him in. That's called kindness. I was raised with that. I was taught that you honored your mother and father and that you honored all the elderlies above you. And you thought that way. So, folks, I'm going to leave you with that thought. And thank you for hanging with the band today with Doug MacLeod, my guest. Man, oh, my goodness. Oh, like I'm walking on cloud now because I heard some things that I needed to hear. and we'll see you later. It's been a good time here. BurntPossumRecords.com. Don't forget, we got a lot of people on there that you need to hear from. We'll see ya. Bye.